Good evening, everyone. Welcome to our November already Chippewa Valley WAHI Continuing Education meeting. A couple things. We have a Christmas party coming up, and I didn't know other chapters did this, and I don't know how you guys feel about it, but they do their Christmas party in December, and then their meeting is free. They do it as a normal chapter meeting. So you would get your continuing education for it, and then your meal would be free. So I don't know if that's something you guys want to think about, or if you want to do it just the way we have been doing it in January.
I like that.
Do we have
Then you
money?
would not want to sit through 2 hours of continuing yet, are you saying we wouldn't be inviting their spouses then too?
That's the other thing. They don't allow their spouses or bring their spouses or whatever.
Yeah.
So that would be something I would be okay with keeping it the way it is. But if you guys wanted to do it as a regular chapter meeting and then there's no cost,
That sounds boring.
Yeah,
You do.
yeah.
it does
We got
sound
enough money,
boring.
don't we, Jim?
Yeah.
As long as we got money, I think the wives like it, right? We like that.
Gotta
in
spend
the-
money anyway.
Yeah, I'm fine with that, so.
We always look forward more to that than we do in meetings anyway, so.
Exactly. And it's more fun, except when Jason does a presentation, then it's.
Yeah.
Then the other thing is, now that the fall seminar is over, we're gonna be gearing up for the spring seminar that'll be in Eau Claire again next spring. So, anybody that can help out on Friday, especially for the education house, in the morning for peer review, and or in the afternoon for the rotation training, be great. Appreciate all the volunteers that we can get for that.
Did they have a lot of guys for that down there, or?
Yeah.
There were 7 of us,
7, we were there, okay.
7 of us that actually went through the house.
Okay,
In the morning, yeah, for the peer review, but in the afternoon, it must have been close to 40.
I was gonna say somewhere around 40, 50.
A full house, yeah.
most of
in the
that many for the,
For the rotation training,
only,
It was a good house.
and only 55 for the meeting? Yeah,
yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
There were a handful that were there Friday, they weren't there Saturday.
Okay.
Right, yeah.
Oh, yeah, some guys just come. Okay. Wow.
Yep. So other than that, I guess I don't really have anything. I don't know if anyone else has anything they care to mention?
So we need to start developing a list. We gotta start coming up with, should we have a meeting or something to, cause we got one speaker. Jake, we have one set, water set.
Yeah, for Saturday,
Yeah,
right.
for Saturday. So we need 3 more
We need 3 more
Saturday.
for
So we gotta
Saturday.
start,
And
coming
I
up with
think tentatively, we only need 1 more for Friday.
just one more for Friday.
Just 1 more, because if we could get Tristan
Kristen, yep.
to do it.
He would do it.
And then, at the seminar, both Cassidy and Howie
Oh, okay.
volunteered just out of the
Oh,
blue
okay.
to do it at the house.
Okay, good.
on
So we only need 1 more for Saturday. Okay.
1 more on
American
Friday.
Waterworks, maybe, Chuck, maybe, for
Yeah.
basement
I bet he would
cracks,
do it.
or, I don't know, it's an idea, water management.
I was also
I don't know.
thinking about that Travis from Premier Gunite. He was here.
Oh, that was a
years.
good one.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a good one too.
pretty specialized. I mean, it's pretty,
Yeah, but it was
good
kind of-
information. It was a good seminar, good,
What about, those guys, Endless Lansing?
yeah.
Yeah.
Hard for,
The thing is,
I mean, they could-
especially in March, would be strong.
yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
No, I mean, like, just talking about, like, retaining, like, Saturday,
Yeah.
retaining walls and grading,
They would probably do it. They'd probably come up with, pictures.
keep them in the back pocket.
Yeah,
Right,
yeah.
yeah.
I mean, they would do it. I just wonder if they would have enough.
Content.
Cause they kinda just talk more about just how to build and not problems and. Yeah,
Well, we can
I
just
bet
give
they would do
them,
it. I bet they would.
give them a heads up or
Yeah.
something. I'm sure they'd have photos of
Sure.
issues.
I bet they would. Retaining walls or,
Mhm.
sure. Yeah. I bet they would do it.
So something to think about. Yeah. Yep.
But for Friday, we need, now, they do Thursday and Friday?
No.
I thought they were, somebody
No.
said.
Thursday they come in and look at the house, kind of go
Oh, that's just, yeah, that's what we used to do, okay,
Yeah.
that's right, that's just the guys going and
Yeah.
evaluating the house, so, okay. Did we do that last year?
Yeah.
I know I was part of it, but I don't remember.
Been a long year.
You were there.
I probably set it up, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay,
Pretty sure it was your house you found.
yeah, I found a house, yeah.
So-
So, yeah, we gotta find a house, and that's always
Yeah.
the tough part, is trying to schedule a house for it.
Scott was saying that he spoke with the guy that had the house.
Mhm.
He doesn't have. Yeah.
Huh?
I talked to Tom this week, last week, let him know that we're looking. He said he doesn't have anything right now, he's not in the market buying anything. And he said he also knows people too.
Okay.
Other people that are buying houses.
Yeah, and
I just happened to run into him.
okay.
It'd be nice if we could find
Hey,
a
you got
vacant
money,
lot.
just go buy a house
Oh,
so we can use it and then
oh,
sell it.
okay, okay.
Yeah,
It's fine.
it's a good market for that.
This is the money.
That's
Just go over there.
problem solving
All kinds of
needed.
people. We'll find a house, yeah.
Yeah, I'm not super concerned about
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
So anyway, our speaker tonight is Jason with Gibson Water Care.
His nickname is Gibby. Right.
Mhm.
He's gonna be educating us on all things water related, good and bad. So, Jason, if you're ready, the floor is all yours.
Oh, shit.
Well, thanks, guys. I really enjoy coming here. And it's been, how many years?
Last year.
Over 10 or 12 years, I'm thinking, so. I've been coming here.
Been
Yeah.
coming.
So probably long.
Longer, yeah.
And sometimes it's hard to come up with new and exciting things about water, because water sometimes doesn't ever change, but technologies do. And I try to pull stuff that kind of relates to what you guys are seeing and doing out there. And one thing that always comes up is pH balance in the water. And what that is pH is a scale. It's not necessarily a thing, it's a scale. 0 to 14 is the pH scale, 7 being neutral. Ideally, 7.2 is what you want your water to be above, okay? And so we have alkaline above 7 and acidic below 7. Now you don't want to get too alkaline, because alkaline can be a little aggressive too. You get up above 10, and you're going to have the exact same problems that you have below 7. There are different reasons why some water's aggressive and some water's not, even though the pH is exactly the same at two houses. We see a lot of these things. I'm going to pass around a lot of stuff tonight because I am not computer literate even a little bit, so I do the old-fashioned handouts here.
So Jason, that house that we talked about.
Yeah.
I did a house just last week, and over in Cadott, just north of Cadott. These people bought this house, I kind of know these people. And 1970s house. And they bought a house, and I went over, just kind of looked at it for them, just wanted to do an evaluation for them, just to give them information. And he was he's gonna do some remodeling stuff, and he happened to open the wall kind of right behind the main bathroom. The main bathroom. In the wall is a piece of copper pipe with what do you call the expansion, things like for air expansion. This thing laying in the wall right behind the toilet. It's all rusted and corroded. Okay, the whole house now is CPVC. So, 1970s house, it's all been replumbed. With, not like yesterday, it was done by homeowner and they replaced it. So, the question I told him, right, is you must have some acidic water, and what is it still doing?
Right.
So I recommended to have Jason, because there was no water conditioning equipment in the house, and that's why I said, should have you come out and do an assessment, right? Because that's acidity. That must have eaten those pipes up. So.
One of the biggest things is copper being soft, okay? Now, if you have acid water and you've never had it treated, your house no longer has much copper. I'm gonna pass around a couple samples here. one piece of copper is from a house that has a good pH, one piece of copper is from a house that has a low pH, and you'll just see how thin that is. Okay? Nothing against copper. I mean, truly, I believe a house really should be still plumbed in copper, it's just real expensive. Because hard plumbing, this is just a plumbing thing, this really isn't a water thing. Hard plumbing, your PVCs, your CPVCs, your galvanized, your copper, all your fittings go on the outside. So when you say 3/4 inch, it's true inside 3/4 inch, okay? Your soft, your PEX, your Wurzbo, things of that nature, your fittings go on the inside. And so you go grab a bunch of 3/4 inch Wurzbo and start putting together, every fitting's a 1/2 inch. You have now reduced the flow of your water by 1/3. Very, very common. And I don't know how some of the home builders really get over it. So you get some of these big McMansions out there, guys, 3 and 4 bathrooms, and they got 3/4 inch copper feeding, or 3/4 inch PEX feeding the water heater. How much water can you get through 1/2 inch plumbing? Does anybody know? How many gallons per minute?
GPM?
4.
Yep. Yeah, it's
3 or 4?
no, it's 9 to 12 gallons a minute. Which, if you got a couple of showers going and a dishwasher and a laundry, which in some of these houses can possibly have, especially in the holidays, when you got families over, you're starving your system. And so, but it's an interesting thing. Nobody wakes up and says, "Hey, replumb my house." It's not, nobody does that unless there's a specific problem. And so houses of a certain age, just like most of us, of a certain age, when you go into them, and they're used, pre-2000, and they got PVC or CPVC, they got a problem. This is just not something that anybody does, okay? A lot of plumbers never put in PVC or CPVC. It's usually a handyman or somebody who thinks they know about plumbing. This stuff's great, don't get me wrong, it's good stuff. It has its place in the plumbing supply business, but this particular house was PVC, which isn't rated for potable water. It's strictly drain pipe, non-potable use, but that's why they use CPVC. And that's the more yellow with the plastic that you see. But no home inspector is really gonna come in there and tag that and say, "Hey, you gotta replumb your entire house."
I heard somewhere, and I can't remember where, but that PVC was allowed on the cold line, just not on the hot line. And CPVC has to be used on the hot.
It's a real gray area. It's a real gray area. And you don't ever see anybody changing what plumbing they're using. If they're gonna do PVC, they're doing the whole house. They're gonna use CPVC, they're gonna use the whole house.
So in CPVC or PVC pipe, if you've got low acidity or very acidic water, what reaction is that doing to the, is it breaching, is it correlating, or so it's dissolving? What is the bad part?
The chemistry of the chloropollyfluor, and whatever you call it, the acid does not play a factor. Some people say it makes it more brittle, but that has to do with they're all petroleum products and they're off-gassing forever. If you've ever tried to cut into a piece of CPVC or PVC that's 15, 20 years old and it just kind of crushes, it's because it's brittle. It's losing its petroleum product by off-gassing. We never talk about off-gassing into the water. It's one of the things they never talk about. But if a house is, before 2000 and it's got all PEX, if it's got all plastic plumbing, it may have been a manufactured home. That was real common in the manufacturing with all the weird plumbing sizes that you don't normally see in standard plumbing. Instead of being 3/4, it's 3/8. Instead of being 1 inch, it's 5/8. And then have a real fun time at the hardware store trying to find a 3/8 fitting to 3/4 inch fitting, or female iron pipe to regular thread. That's why a perfect example, outside hose bibs. It's not standard plumbing thread. Go figure. So, But acid water, I just passed this around. This was white. This has just been washed a number of times in the lady's house, and she handed me all her towels and everything. And it's just, it became a filter. It was filtering out the copper that's bouncing around in the house. Copper is also not good to be consuming in that amount, and lead is a big thing. 90s, 2000s, most of your brass came from China. Lead is a big proponent in the chemical makeup of brass. We started to see a lot of these when you had your home daycares and they had to get testing for it. All of a sudden they got lead. Lead is not conducive to western Wisconsin water. The strata, the rock does not produce lead. Lead is a contaminant up here. You raise the pH, grab another sample, boom, lead goes away. So, but there's a lot of things where pH comes in a factor. A lot of plastic fittings, the brass fitting that just start the, and it's one of those odd things where you just start seeing a lot of degradation. And it might be one fitting, it might be two fittings, it might be something that water has a kinetic energy. The more elbows, the more resistance, can make that water a little more aggressive, and that's why you'll see elbows tend to leak more than other units. You'll see shut-off valves leak more than other things. So you got resistance creating some of that problem out there. Do we have any questions so far?
So Jason, we'll just go back to that outset. So he's gonna tear the CPVC out, he's gonna put caps.
Yep. I told him not to do it.
Okay, that's what I was gonna say.
I said.
So what was the, cause you did a test on it.
Yeah,
What was the acidity?
He was a 5.5, it was very low.
Very low.
Now, close only counts in horseshoes and hand grenades, so 7 being neutral, we'd like to have it above 7.2, so there's a little slush factor there. He was at 5.5. You can see aggressiveness as little as 6.7. But there's a lot of things in there. One thing that plays a factor in aggressiveness is how pure your water. I was talking about pure water. Well, some of the most purest water that we use is called deionized water. They use it a lot in the medical fields. They use it a lot in the computer systems because they can't have any kind of contaminants in these things. A lot of phlebotomists and this stuff, they work with blood. They can't have anything contaminated when they're using this. So deionized water is truly H2O. There's nothing else in it, and it tastes like crap. It is horribly bitter and horribly acidic. It might be 4.5 because there's nothing in that water to balance out the pH. The more pure your water is, the more aggressive it is because there's nothing there to balance out the pH in the water. A lot of rainwater, as it picks up carbon dioxide and things out of the water, a lot of your rainwater becomes 4.0. And that has nothing to do with the internal combustion. We have had acid water rain for millions and millions of years. As long as we have volcanoes bursting tons and tons and tons of toxins into the air, you will always have acid rain. And so, the biggest thing is, I told this gentleman not to plumb his house because nothing was leaking. The plumbing is doing what it's supposed to do. It's carrying water. He's excited to do PEX. So, okay, he's gonna buy the tool, he's gonna do it. Can't talk about it, that's fine. But I gave him a lot of hints. Make sure that you upsize your PEX. Don't run and get PEX. He had a lot of 1 inch. He had great lines running everywhere. So he had lots of volume. So, I told him what he needed to do to really help and reduce. Make sure you get plastic fittings. Wurzbow, when it first came out, all your elbows and your unions and your couplings, they were all brass. 10, 15 years later, they're all leaking. And I've been to a lot of these houses that I was at when they were brand new. I got no problem. No, I got plastic plumbing. Oh no, there's nothing wrong here. And we come back, they've gone through 3 water heaters, they've had pipes burst, the plumbers have fixed their faucets and things, and trust me, these faucets aren't getting any cheaper, and they rot out faster. And so, if you go to a house and you got that drip, 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 that's because the internal side has been eaten out and the cartridge no longer seals. and you get your drips. And so luckily some American Standard mowing, you might be able to get a free cartridge, so.
For your acid rain thing, remember back in probably like the late '80s, early '90s, when acid rain was a big deal,
Oh, yeah.
especially in like the Wisconsin, Michigan,
Oh,
Ohio.
huge.
How come all of a sudden that just died? I haven't heard anyone talk about acid rain in years.
Because they really started to look at the science. And it comes to the point where every drop of water in the world is still here. Hasn't gone anywhere. Water moves. Now I'm in conservation because I'm in water, but I'm also not necessarily somebody who goes out and kisses and hugs trees either. But I understand water, okay? We have thousands of new glaciers, but all they talk about is the glaciers that are going away. These glaciers are in just some other areas of the world. So water moves, water moves. Some areas are experiencing floods that they've never had for hundreds and maybe 1,000 years. Some areas are really, really dry. The middle of America, from each mountain range, was an ancient ocean. That's why we have huge aquifers underneath Kansas and Nebraska and Colorado. It's all a big ocean. Well, that's what they call it. This, and not this area, but south here, the Cooley region. It was under a mile of ice. Glacier was just scraping along, and that's where it stopped. That's why they got all the great big hills and all the granite.
The Ice Age Trail in
Ice Age
New
Trail.
Albany, right?
This is a bypass from an old Gibson unit that's about 20 years old. We used to use a lot of brass. But if you look on the one side, you'll see a lot of copper, and the other side is not a lot of copper. That was taken out because it's leaking. That's a big chunk of brass. But the internal part where the water comes into it doesn't seal anymore at the bypass net and the rubber gaskets. And that's pretty thick. You'll feel how heavy that is. So all metals will rot away with acid. Low pH water. It just depends on what and how. Any bent copper tubing. I'm not a big fan of plastic, but unless you got good pH, by all means, please go get a plastic feed line to your refrigerator. so those are just real big insurance things waiting to happen because they will leak when you are not home. You can be sick and on your deathbed for 4 years and that thing won't grip. You take a trip to the greater Colfax area for 2 weeks, and that's going to ruin your floor and leak into the basement and everything. So,
What are your thoughts on polybutyl?
I know some places they don't like it, and if that has to do with off-gassing and things of that nature.
Cracking and
Yep.
brittle?
I mean, there are plumbers that won't even touch it because then they feel that they will be responsible for it. They won't even attach to it. But you found, nowadays in the last 10 years, you get a lot of the quick connects, the push pulls and things that really you're not really necessarily structurally crimping or tying on to that. So you're starting to see a lot of that. It's been illegal in a lot of states, and so, but that's the thing is it just doesn't seem to have the wherewithal that other plastics do. The other thing I wanted to look at, two things, you can have rotten pipes on city water. Okay, there are lots of city waters out there that the pH is just above 7. That's what the law says. But you can get electrolysis. We see a lot of this in Fall Creek and a lot of this in Altoona because the pH is right at that 7.2. So it's not necessarily aggressive, but it's waiting and it's waiting. And what happens? You get pissed off at Charter. Charter takes their cable out, and the satellite guy comes and he grounds to your plumbing. You now are running a small electrical charge through that plumbing. Remember, your water has an electrical charge. Now you have dissimilar metals. What do they call that? The connections in the water heaters.
Dielectric.
Dielectric, yeah.
You start to have that within your water supply, and you can get blue-green staining on city water. You can burn up water heaters on city water. And some of that also has to do with, it's funny, our manual even says you have to have a jumper wire from the bypass cause the units are plastic now, and so, but most of your plumbing coming into the house, if your house is of a certain age, is plastic, so your house isn't grounded in the plumbing at all anyway.
Huh.
But it's a real common thing, that's what happens when you have electricians write plumbing rules. But that's one of the things, you just be aware that even on city water, you might have an old piece of tin strap that's got that copper strapped to the floor joist, you might get a leak right there. Why is it leaking? This is city water, shouldn't be acidic, you might be getting some electrolysis going on. We saw a lot of that in Altoona in Fall Creek. But one little thing about here is called total dissolved solids, going back to how pure your water is. Total dissolved solids are things in your water that normal filtration doesn't take out. And total dissolved solids is the purity of the water. There's a commercial out there that says zero water. You know, and they give you a little TDS meter. The lower the TDSs, the better the quality of water. Because they got you convinced that all TDSs are bad, which they're not. Yes, there are bad TDSs out there, arsenic, nitrates, things of that nature. But low TDS water doesn't necessarily taste very well either. So, but that's where you can have somebody that has a 5.5 pH, and their next door neighbor has a 5.5 pH. One guy's burning up a water heater every 3 to 5 years. The other guy's been 25 years, hasn't changed a water heater at all, hasn't changed anything in his house. Why? He's got acidic water. Well, he might have 190 or 210 TDSs in the water. That is keeping that water from being aggressive. Even though it's acidic, it might affect us internally, but it's not affecting the water. It's keeping it balanced, even though it's a 5.5 pH. This person might have a 48 TDSs, extremely aggressive water. Just little things out there. I mean, there's just a lot of things that you gotta look at. And guys, I didn't wake up one day and know all this. I mean, it's in books, and I've read a lot of books, and they are just boring. They're boring, boring, boring. I tell you, I actually got out of chemistry in pre-calculus when I was in high school. 15 minutes, I realized, yeah, I'm not failing this class. And I use it every day now. And it's just as boring now as it was then. But you kind of, there's a lot of things that you're just looking beyond what's, and like I said, down in Pepin County, the lady had a lot of problems. Well, their electrician put in this big charging station and everything, and her copper was just green, and she's having pinhole leaks. Well, you can feel the hair on your arms next to this thing. There's so much static electricity in the air, it's attacking the plumbing system. So I said, you got an 8.5 pH. Well, that's not acid. It absolutely is not acidic. You need to do something about this because you have got your own magnetic electrical field going on here, and I wouldn't stand in this orb of electricity for any longer than I want to. So that's got brain cancer written all over it there.
So when we see pipes, a lot of times they're blue-green. I mean,
exteriorly,
it's reactionary. I mean, it's something.
Exteriorly, you don't usually get acid water or acid from outside in. Usually, it's some kind of charge in the air from condensation, and it's just attracting the pipes.
So I remember years ago there was one up on Lake Altoona.
I mean, you can go into houses and every piece of copper is just green, green,
llama
green.
farm. I don't know if you, I think you got this is 15, 20 years ago, but there's a llama farm up there with the doctor.
Yeah.
I can't remember the doctor's name. I remember doing that inspection. And I remember walking downstairs, and I looked down, and there's 2 green stripes going down the floor. Look up, and those pipes were totally. 6 months after that thing started to leak. That whole house had to be replaced. It was a 20-year-old house at that time.
When you have acidic water and you have exterior print, it's almost a double effect, because it will slowly slough you. I know you've gone to a lot of houses and you see those blue-green stains on the floor. That is 1,000 times slower than what's happening on the inside. But any kind of degradation on the outside with what's going on the inside, it's just getting thinner that much quicker. I mean, you saw some of these pieces, it's just eggshells. It's just eggshells waiting to happen.
So if it's M copper, so it's thin. So if you've got that much blue-green on the outside, is it reacting?
If it-
Or
if
is
it's
it more
thin- if
just
it's
the
thin-
inside?
If it's thin copper, if
Yeah,
you've
it's
got
all
that
M,
going on,
it's all
yeah.
M. I mean,
Yeah,
that's all
I mean,
regular
I
plumbing
would
is.
definitely, and that's kind of why, you know, back in the eighties, they used thicker copper. It's the houses in the nineties when we had a housing boom.
Yep.
I know a lot of you guys, what's the word, camelback, when they have two septic fields, is that what it's called? When they have two drain fields out in, what do they call that? I thought the term was called a camelback, but I don't know, but you saw that go away, because that was $10,000 that the builder didn't need to spend. You know, it's real common to go out there and every 3-4 years they pump and they just switch off the one and let it dry out while the other one takes it. That was real common, and then it just went away because it was $10,000 they didn't have to spend. You know, well, if it fails 15 years from now, they'll forget whoever built the house.
Right.
They probably won't even live here. Very rarely do people ever stay in the same house for that long. I mean, a lot of people, they're just moving around, upgrading to newer houses and whatnot, and so there's a lot of things that home builders do that they never did before. Any other questions on acid water?
I live on the south side near Brackett.
Okay.
The exit on city water. Our dishes and the bathroom, it's filled with like a hardness. Do you think possibly that it could be reacting from like a ground cable that's connected, or?
You know, different areas in different cities will have harder and softer water, because of the age of the water main. If you're near a cul-de-sac, if you're near a water tower, things totally, like, we have more water softeners on the south side of town than we do the north side of town, okay? But the north side of town is much older, okay, a lot of old plumbing. But on the south side of the town, the water mains and everything were not as thought out. They just put them down. North side of the town, they loop from block to block to block. The water is really, really consistent. You get in the Oakwood Hills area, there's a ton of cul-de-sacs, and there's two water tank and a water tower. People up there tend to get a little bit harder water. You know, the south side of town, you got a lot of cul-de-sacs, a lot of new places that butted up against the town of Washington, and they had to stop. Well, that water main just stops there. Okay, so you're getting everybody's crap, so your water's gonna be slightly, you might get more stuff there that 2 blocks over, they might not be getting. And so, the next thing I wanna talk about.
Of course, you always taught me this, where, like Carrie, my daughter Carrie. To cure the acidity, sometimes you have to look at the other two, hardness or iron.
Yep.
So, in that test you did for Plymouth,
Yeah.
was there, because you had what, 4.5 or something on the acidity?
Yeah.
Which is acidic.
Yeah.
But what was their iron and their hardness?
The
'Cause
hardness
you
and
already
iron-
said sometimes you have to, if we're gonna cure this.
The
you have
basics,
to
Chippewa
cure the
Valley
iron.
has some of the softest water in the entire world. We live in a big bowl of sand, okay? Iron can be anywhere. But here, and this isn't exact, but Highway 10 starting at Mondovi, Osseo all the way up to Neilsville, Highway 73 at Neilsville, all the way up to Thorpe, all the way up to Ingram on Highway 8, Glen Flora, Tony, Ladysmith, all the way over to Barron, and then Barron to Menominee on Highway 25. That box is a big bowl of sand. And so we have some of the softest water in that box. And so when you don't have any mineral in the ground, the water tends to be more acidic. Most of the municipalities in that box have to raise the pH. You get outside that box, and there are, that's not the rule, but there are exceptions, but you get outside that box, you get into more limestone and granite, and you get into much harder water. A perfect example is 0 to 2 grains of hardness is considered soft water, 2 to 4 slightly hard, and 4 to 7 grains per gallon is considered hard water. City of Chippewa and Eau Claire are between 6 and 8 grains of hardness. Now it's classified as hard water, but fewer than 10% of both cities have water softeners. Most people that have water softeners are people that have always had soft water And so they notice some of the problems, or people that have psoriasis or eczema where soft water benefits them. You get out of this box, I always use Pepin County because that's one of the closest counties that we treat where things just go really, really haywire, and that's why I kind of stop at Mondovi. The areas mostly in Pepin County, you are between 15 to 28 grains of hardness. That's the kind of hardness that you're using the razor blade to scrape the shower door. That's the kind of hardness you can't get any soap suds. You just can't get them. Everything turns gray, and you get a lot of soap scum, which turns the clothes colors and gives it itchy and things like that. But iron can be anywhere. Iron can really be anywhere. But they have no idea what acid water is down there because there's so much mineral in the ground, and that's what we do to raise pH. The simplest thing is we make your water harder by running it through a mineral bed and a neutralizer. The other way is chemical feed, and that kind of goes back to why we have to test the water. If you got hard water, putting a neutralizer in sometimes isn't going to work because there's already dissolved minerals in the water. It's not going to accept anymore. There's something else in the water that's making that water acidic, and then we can use a chemical feed system. Some of you have seen them out there, pumps on the wall, big tub of stuff. You know, Jeffrey Dahmer used it to get rid of people. You know, it's caustic soda is the most common thing. Yeah, you know, when they talk about the little picture with the hand being eaten away, yeah, they ain't kidding when you get that stuff on you. You'll know it. You'll know it, and you'll do anything to get it off yourself because your skin will be gone. It makes great teeth whitener too. And I'll pass this around. This is some minerals that we use to raise the pH. One thing I wanted to hand out, which has always become a thing for the last 20-some years, is pink staining. Pink staining. Always you got orange in the water. Orange in the water. We get there and it's a bright, shiny pink. Might be a tan, might even be a black, but pink staining. Okay. It's not water related in any way, shape, or form, but it always shows up where water is. So I got this. Well, the DNR came to us about 18 years ago, and I could sell a lot of equipment on this problem, guys. And some of you might even have this in your house. All the equipment in the world isn't going to change. Okay. What it is the houses are usually too efficient. It's a bacteria that's in the ground. We have these beautiful falls and springs. We open up our windows. That bacteria gets into our HVAC system. Okay? It's not toxic. It's not harmful. Of course, there is a disclaimer on there because anybody that has any kind of medical issue, things are toxic and harmful. But for the most part, to the average man, it is not toxic. What it is it's usually houses that have the Tyvek wrap, which was mid-90s. Or if you put new siding on, and they Tyvek your wrap, new windows. Windows are so much more better than they used to be. And so what happens is the houses don't breathe. And what happens is you got dust bouncing along your HVAC system, getting just a huge charge because it's bouncing off, just discoing down all that metal before it comes out of the house. It's suspended in the air, you have moisture, the dust settles to the moisture, okay? But that thing is like a magnet. Your bathrooms have no cold air returns. So there's nothing coming through, it's only air in. And everybody says, oh, I always turn on my fan. It doesn't do it. It may help, but it's just not circulating through the furnace filter. And so that bacteria comes out and has nowhere to get sucked into and get filtered out. What does it do? It's attracted to that dust. That dust is supercharged. And it's attracted to the dust. Now you've got a little petri dish going on, and you get it on the shower heads, get all snotty. Toilet might have a ring in it. Sink might have a ring in it. Your shower curtains might look just orange, but it's bacteria. It's not necessarily an iron thing. You get this all the time. Not a lot you can do about it. Better furnace filter, about it. But just remember, you guys know you have to change them more often if you do a better filter. You can buy UV systems that'll help knock it down. Always clean your if you bought a house or somebody, furnace ducts or something that do need to be cleaned every once in a while. So, but you're never going to get rid of it 100%. And so, But there's ways, you know, a little bleach spray now and then can cut down. The best thing I can tell you about the shower curtains is cut them. I know it's tough when you got kids and everything, but only have them an inch or so below the lip of the tub. You know, if they're going down to the bottom of the tub, they're always wet, they're always in contact with the side of the tub. That's just a bunch of ick waiting to happen. So I handed out some information on that. If you ever see something like, I got iron and it's a pinkish or a tan, yeah, it's not iron. Any questions on that? One thing I want to talk about is odors in the water. How many people have gone to a house and run the water and it just knocks your socks off? Just, oh my God, I can't believe what's wrong with that? And that's where you get the whole nose blind thing. You don't smell that, huh? Just like the house with 60 cats, you know, and it's, wow, how you living here? Well, I don't smell anything. Of course you don't. You have 60 cats, that's why you don't smell anything. But, there's two big things. A lot of people in our territory, sulfur. It's a mind game. Our mind kind of thinks sulfur, rotten egg, propane, rotten egg. Your mind, if you put you in a vacuum room where there's no air and we gave you these individual things, they would smell just completely different. But your mind kind of focuses in it. We see very little sulfur in this area. Sulfur likes to hide in granite. We have granite in this area, but not a lot of it. If you've got any kind of iron, and not a lot, it doesn't need to be a lot of iron. Any amount of iron has iron bacteria in it. There are a ton of bacteria in water. They're just aerobic. They need air and sunlight to grow. So they're coming out of that glass and going right into our bellies. That bacteria is not affecting us in any way, shape, or form. Unless if it's an anaerobic bacteria like E. coli or coliform or things of that nature, then yes, they're grabbing the oxygen molecule out of the H2O and growing. So, but iron bacteria can be one of the toughest things to get rid of because it's a bacteria. It's growing. And the way we can usually tell that it's bacterial, hot water stinks, but the cold water doesn't. Cold water stinks, but the hot water doesn't. It stinks down at that end of the house and it doesn't stink at this end of the house. That's just the cultures are stronger. It stinks in the spring, but not in the fall. It stinks in the winter, but not in the summer. It's just the cultures that are growing, and these is where we recommend good well chlorinations or a good line chlorination of the house. I handed out something here because this is something that if you guys ever get this question, we do one of these. We get these hot water heaters that just reek, and cold water's fine. The hot water will just burn your eyes because it just reeks. That's because most of your water heaters have an anode rod in them. An anode rod is designed to protect it. You gotta have an anode rod. You gotta have an anode rod. Or for decades, if you got water conditioning, you don't necessarily need an anode rod because you're protecting that water heater. But it's like telling a mechanic you don't need an oil filter. Well, if you already got something that's filtering the oil, why do we need an oil filter? So really, plumbers will really fight on this. Then why, if we pull it out, the odor goes away? Oh, you gotta put one in there. So the plumber will sell them a $300 anode rod, and 4 months later the water comes back. Because the anode rod is designed to dissolve and attract. It attracts iron. What grows on iron? Iron bacteria. Sometimes you can turn up the water heater and cook it out. I can't do that. I don't recommend that you guys do that because you are liable. Most of the water heaters are set for 110 degrees. That's most efficient. That's not very hot water. Perfect incubation for iron bacteria. Perfect incubation. You crank them up between medium and high, it's about 140 degrees. Good hot shower will cause second-degree burns, and so you're liable. So I've shown people how to do it. I'll stand right behind them and tell them what to do, but you really shouldn't. Electric ones are a little tougher than gas ones. You usually have a dial, so it's pretty easy. So they come out with these things, and what this does is it runs an electrical current. And it protects the water heater, so you can't get angry at anybody, oh, you're ruining my water heater. No, it does protect the water heater. But it runs a little electrical current that keeps that bacteria from forming. And so you don't get that odor. And, you know, for years we've seen certain things and always thought they were gimmicky. I was at a trade show, a guy gave me one. Try it out. Well, they're gonna give me one. And I was just amazed. Just amazed. So now we're not cutting out the water, the anode rods and putting them off to the side, we're taking them out and we're putting these in here. So if you have somebody that has one of those hot water issues, give us a call. That's why I always recommend the Marathon ones, because they're plastic, impervious to the acid water, and no anode rod. So, but that's, if you've ever run into this on one of your home inspections, they don't necessarily have a technical water problem, they got a water heater problem. So, does anybody ever run into that when they test out there, when they're out in the waters? Sometimes you don't really run the water long enough to get a good snootful.
I've had it before with the hot water, you can smell it. I've been told if you crank it up to between 120 and 130, you can kill it, but still not have a chance of scalding.
It depends on how much is inside. I mean, if you've got a good 1/4 inch growth of jelly on the inside of it, it's got its own insulation. So you're killing the outside layer, but there's the inside. And it's one of those things where you might wash your hands and not smell it because you're not running enough, or you might take a shower and you're not really, you're staying right on the top end of the water heater. But when you run a bathtub or something, run laundry, dumping a lot of water, and then it really hits you because you're really scooping up that junk from the bottom of the water.
John, at 120 degrees, adult skin will take 5 minutes to get a second degree burn. 130 degrees is 30 seconds. So I wouldn't advise people to put it between 120 and 130.
I'm just saying, that's what I've been told.
Yeah, I mean,
To get rid of the bacteria.
when I go to houses and I see that, you know, you turn on that hot water and you got the steam right away, one of two things: they either really love hot showers or they got an odor problem there. And then I test the iron. Oh, sure, here you go. Guys, there's little things like what you guys see out there that you just know right away. All right. Like going into a house that's 35 years old and they got all plastic plumbing. Well, this would have all been copper.
That's
So
why
what's going on here?
That's on that house. I'm
Yeah.
thinking, why was that replaced with PVC at anything?
Bradford white water heaters are a little bit different for these anode rods. We need a special adapter because Bradford white puts their anode rod on the outlet side instead of the big nut when you pull it out.
Yeah.
And so there is a little bit different things on Bradford whites.
And how much these cost?
We do them for $375,
$375.
and that's installed out to the house.
Okay.
Bradford whites are $425 because that little stainless steel part of it you gotta have, and that's the problem. They really hammer it. Washing machine odors. How many people have had some washing machine odors? You don't see a lot of it anymore, but for a good 15 years, when the front loaders came out, that's all you had. Washing machine odors are usually soaps, nothing water related, okay? Your front loaders use an HE soap. Doesn't mean high efficiency. What it is, it has an anti-foaming agent in there because they spin at 1500 RPMs versus 300 on the top loader. And that anti-foaming agent in your liquid soaps is an animal fat. And we're just filthy creatures full of bacteria, so when we throw our stuff into the washing machine, it spins at 1500 RPM, throwing that animal fat everywhere, but throwing the bacteria everywhere. And so you get these horrid bacterial growths. And they've gotten better. I always told them switch to a powder, because a powder uses a talc. Oh, it'll clog this up and it'll clog that up. Hey, you know, throw it through the door then if you're worried about clogging your mechanism, because that's what they do on the top loader. You just throw it. So, but they've gotten a lot better on that because it was a horrible thing for a while. But whoever thought that you would you go to the Walmart and you will see 2 shelves washing machine cleaner. We're putting put soap in there anyway? Why would we need washing machine cleaner? Because the makeup of these front loaders, there's always water in the bottom. They don't fully drain out, so they got their own little petri dish going on there. And so, but I used to tell people when this first happened, take some clean towels, 2 gallons of white vinegar. That white vinegar will slough off that bio layer. It'll be all good and ready, and then switch your soaps. And so, just a word to the wise: if you have somebody, this might, it might be a personal thing. You might have to struggle at your house. I don't know if you really get into any odors in the washing machine and what you're testing for out there, but I did have it on my odors things here. Any questions about odors in water? Iron bacteria doesn't always smell like rotten eggs. It can smell like diesel fuel. If any of you are farmers, one of the most god-awful smells in the world is the milk replacer that you give calves. You don't ever forget that rancid wheat smell. It smells like beer that's been sitting on a dry floor forever. And just, so, yeah, iron bacteria can take on a lot of different odors. This is one that I really debated. Does anybody do any septic inspections? This is one I really debated on. I said, you know what? I'm gonna poke the bear. There's one guy in Eau Claire, I think he's getting ready to retire, but he'll go into a house and he will scare the hell out of people. God, what are you doing? This is going into your septic, you're ruining everything. Okay. There's a lot of information on how water conditioners are not ruining septic systems. Okay. Especially in the last 25 years, all your water softeners, that's the one that really gets the target on, are on-demand water softeners. They don't dump anywhere near the salt that they used to dump. 30 years ago, every 2 to 3 days, they're dumping 15 pounds of salt in the septic system. Depending on your own bacterias, the Western diet is a horrible diet. We don't create very good bacterias like we used to, okay?
Unless you eat meat all the time.
Unless you eat meat all the time.
There's nothing.
And so that's one of the biggest things, is we are not creating the bacterias that we once did, okay? And our septic systems are not healthy because we are not healthy. The other thing is that there's a ton of chemicals in our world, guys, that are going down the drain that are causing this. But the softeners always have the target on their backs. They always do. Oh, you get this white crust and blah, 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 blah. Okay, guys. Septic systems sometimes fail just for a number of reasons, but the water conditioner always gets the finger pointed at. And I have gone out in 25 years and had guys point at me, septic guys, homeowners, who've ruined this. Perfect example, there's a Bridgeport is right over here. I don't know if you guys know, it's on 110th Avenue. Halley, it's a mosquito factory. They call it a lake, but it's a mosquito factory. This is an old gravel pit. Put a bunch of houses out there. Now the ground's already saturated. So I go out to this guy's house and he wanted a walkout. So they dug out a walkout that goes down to the Chippewa River. It's the only walkout there. I'm looking at the downspouts, I'm looking at everything. Everything drains the backyard. I mean everything in the neighborhood drains this backyard and goes into, well, that's where his drain field and septic system. His house was 1.5 years old, septic system completely shot. Can't accept any more water, no bacteria. And they pointed at me like I was this thing. And it's fun, you know, you get to go out there and there's 5 guys all staring at a shit pit. It's pretty, I should have had a picture of it, you know. Nobody's moving, everybody's sitting there just staring at it. Well, there's no activity, no bubbles, no nothing. Yeah, your water softener ruined that. Oh, it did. Well, let's go look at that water softener. So we went in the house. So where is it? Well, it's right there. Where? Right there. Where? It's your unit, you put it in. Well, I'm still wondering where the softener is. It's right there. an acid neutralizer.
Oh my gosh.
They didn't even know?
Didn't know.
Didn't have a tub
Septic
next to
guy
it?
told him, contractor told him that our water softener was ruining their day. And I asked him, well, you tell me when we put a water softener in here, you let me know, because that's a neutralizer. Just dumping water into your septic system like your washing machine, like anything else. There's no sodium in there. Sodium helps the formation of oxygen. Oxygen helps the growth of bacteria. And water softeners actually can benefit a water softener. What we see out there, and what it is, the guy had 6 people in the house, not picking on females, but he had 5 females in the house. So lots of water, lots of laundry,
Chlorine.
lots of hair conditioning, lots of hair coloring, lots of things, lots of things. And so, but the bottom line was, look at the geology, guys. I'm not a scientist on this, but he's got a huge house with square footage. I don't know how to do this. Maybe the roofers know how. But he's got all these downspouts. Everything's just going right down into this one area where his drain field is. I said, it's just oversaturated. It can't.
So the drain field was
And I said,
saturated.
all the bacteria were being carried out to the drain field instead of staying and cooking in the septic tank. I said, you gotta get a drain field up on one of these hills here in a pumping station. I'm not a septic guy, I'm not telling you how to do your job, but it ain't the water side. Thank you.
Because there ain't no water side. There ain't no water
There ain't
side.
no
Because
water
there ain't no
side.
water side.
So, I mean, I've had that several times, well, you show, well, the salt's inside there. Yeah, that's not how it works. But, septic systems failed. I just went out to one out by Stilson School here. House had 6 people in it. They moved out. Old couple moved in, gone 6 months out of the year. Another couple moved in, gone 6 months out of the year. What are they not doing? They're not pooping. Okay? A water conditioner, and the easiest way to explain to somebody, just so the numbers make sense, because we can get into how many gallons this and blah, is the average water conditioner, regardless of company, will dump the same amount of water every 3 days into your in your septic system as another person living in the house. These are 4 and 5 bedroom houses. Their septic system is pretty large. Now, they have 2 water conditioners, dumping water, which I told them to turn them off when they leave, but dumping water while they're not there. And what do these water conditioners don't do is add bacteria back to the septic system. So you're filling that septic system with the bacteria gets diluted, bacteria goes out to the drain field where it doesn't do anything, it sludges up the drain field doesn't absorb. I said, this isn't my area of expertise, but I've read a lot of boring books on this. So, but that's the biggest thing, is that we do see what's called hydraulic overload, just too much water going out. And sometimes people have bad enough water, well, these units will dump every day of the week. But then we talk to them about an outside drain or something about that. Get that water outside. Most places it's not illegal to run an outside drain for treated water because it's just salt water and iron. And the DNR has absolutely no objections to that as long as you're not dumping it right into the river. So, but a lot of this information, a lot of these handouts are just for your more general information. But we get this hammered a lot of times. Well, we'd like to buy this house, but the inspector said you ruined your septic. Great. You want to give them my phone number? Because septic system, they never even used to pump septic systems 60, 70 years ago because the bacteria were doing exactly what they were breaking down and everything. But they also used to use corn cobs instead of toilet paper. So, you know, we've come a long way. But that's the biggest thing is that water conditioners properly set up, and the numbers don't support this, guys, all right? Between us, Culligan, and every other company out there, you know, Gibsons has been around since '79, and 90% of all of ours go directly into septic, just like any other companies out there. So in theory, there should be so many more septic failures than what there actually are. He didn't say, well, a guy parks his RV on the drain field in the winter. You know, he didn't say anything like that. He said it's a water softener. The house is settled, now the drain pipe is cocked this way and he's got a bunch of weeds growing into there. No, it's the water softener. It's always the water softener, it's always the water softener. But here's a lot of things, and one of them is actually, I think, from the National Wastewater Association. They actually, when we proved it to them, it was always no. But when we proved it to them, hey, we got more bacteria in here when we put the water softener on than what you had before. There's a lot of things. There are so many things out there that can cause a septic system to fail. I live not far from here, and everything was a farm field. I'm in a 130-year-old schoolhouse. 35 years ago, there wasn't a house anywhere near me. There's 75 houses that are in this farm field. 20 years, everybody's septic system is failing. Why is that? It's municipal water. There's not a lot of water conditioners out there. And when I ask a septic guy this, that's what I get. That's what I get all the time. They shrug. I said, you just put 75 drain fields into extremely sandy soil.
Yeah.
What do you think's gonna happen?
They're all failing?
Yep.
Really?
Yep, there's 10 just on my block alone.
Really?
Now, they're all acre plus lots, so they have the luxury of putting in another drain field, letting the other one dry out, so they don't have to totally scrap everything. That's what a good guy, I always tell the guy says, yeah, you gotta throw everything out of there, start fresh. Talk to another guy, especially if that house is less than 30, 40 years old, because everything, like I said, unless he's parking his RV on it or something. I mean, you won't go with we won't talk about mound systems, they got just a plethora of problems. But that's the biggest thing, is there's maybe 5 softeners out of these 70, so why, well, mine hasn't failed, it's because I got an old dry well system. So it ain't never gonna fail, but
They do last forever.
well, the nice thing about it is that I pump my dry well every year, but I only pump my septic every other. Because the ground is getting saturated. I've got a 15-foot pipe that I stick down there and actually measure the water, because I'm odd that way. But yeah, you gotta look at the bigger picture on why this septic system failed. Maybe the water conditioning is playing a factor, but it's not the reason why your septic system failed. Usually it's the ground's just saturated. Bacteria. There's a lot of things that get thrown down the toilet that really shouldn't get thrown down the toilet. And so there's a lot of reasons why septics fail. It's just I've had people slamming their fist on the desk that we're gonna write them a $20,000 check for ruining their septic system. So you show me the proof, and then I'll be glad to write you a check.
I always hear that with the disposals too.
Yeah.
And I've had a disposal on my farmhouse for 22 years.
It all goes down to your bacteria that you're putting in it. And unfortunately nowadays, they always said you didn't want to over bacteria, because that can cause a lot of troubles. And nowadays, guys, depending on your diet, you probably have no problems. We're just not putting the right amount of bacteria in there. And that's the other thing, is your water conditioner is added people there. But if you've got a 5-bedroom house and only 2 people in the house, your septic system should never fail. Actually, you might have freezing problems, because you're not creating enough bacteria to create any heat. So, and then of course you're dumping water in there without bacteria. You're diluting that bacteria and causing problems.
They always say flush a cake in there once in a while because it's got the yeast.
Yep.
I was gonna say is.
Dairy bacteria are really good. Most people do pour them down the drain, but some people don't. But dairy bacteria are good for septic systems.
The septic contractor I was talking to one time at a continuing education, he goes, just take a bag of yeast, throw it down into the septic.
Yeast is a super fast growing, and so that it really supercharges the stuff. And other bacteria like to feed on the yeast. And so
I think Dwayne made a comment one time that some farmer he knew said he'd just throw a chicken down in the septic tank once in a while.
A chicken?
No, you know, they're called a corno.
Out of the filter.
You put a quick trip, buy one of the deep fried chickens and throw it in there?
Are you talking about
Like a live
A live chicken.
Chuck it in the septic tank, close the lid, let it die in here.
You're fine.
Are you talking about Dwayne Steinhauer?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think he told me some farmer he knew said
Yeah,
that.
he's one that always kinda
Yeah.
says that, don't put it down there, but he puts his backwash water from his two systems in there. He's been a customer for 30+ years, so. But, you know, he's got a septic pump truck, so he's not gonna have any problem either, so. Any questions about that, guys? We got any more time, or we're all done?
Well, we got plenty of time. Do they discharge exterior? Sometimes they will, right? They'll run
Oh, yeah.
the drain lines
Yeah,
outside.
lots of outside drainage.
Which is okay,
Anywhere you
Totally
go
fine,
across.
right?
The only time,
Yep.
your township, it's illegal in the municipalities, cause that water's gonna go into neighbors' yard.
Right.
Your township may be illegal, they just don't know it.
Right.
Okay, cause a lot of townships will say, hey, we're gonna adopt X 1227B. No wastewater, blah, 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 blah. Everybody, aye, boom. 3 of the 5 board members have outside drains for their water. They just made it illegal.
Well, it's like
They
gray
didn't-
water green too.
Yeah.
They dump their
Yeah,
stuff and
so,
doesn't hurt anything.
I mean, I love, you know, a perfect example, going up and down 178, every other house you'll see a big PVC line coming out the side of the house. That's either their washing machine or their water conditioner. And so far, we don't have any septic police, so we don't have to worry about it. Most of your soaps don't have phosphates in it, and that's why they didn't want you to do that, so you don't have to worry about it, but the deer aren't gonna go in the dark. I just wanted to touch on one or two more things, if we got some time here.
Yep.
Has anybody talked to you guys about PFAS at all?
Yes, I'm glad you mentioned it.
Anybody interested in hearing about PFAS
Sure.
at all?
Explain it, what is?
PFAS is a chemical left over from World War II that they sprayed on everything because it was water repellent. Really took on when we got rid of our hardwood floors and went wall-to-wall carpeting, and then got rid of our carpeting, went back to hardwood floors. Raincoats and all your pots and pans for 30 years. And 95% of all American women have PFAS in their bodies. Because in the 70s, they came out with this great non-running mascara and lipstick and everything that's just 100% PFAS. And so it has revolutionized the world. It's a great thing, but it's turning up everywhere. And guys, it will be everywhere. We are sitting in the Eau Claire Mecca, Chippewa Mecca of PFAS. About 2 years ago, the city of Eau Claire had a PFAS scare. Because right here, they have to practice, and there hasn't been a fire here in 30 years, but every month the guys get out there and they spray their foam. Practice, flame retardant foam, and when they're done, they get out the big hoses and they spray it all off onto the grass. Which every airport has done that forever. And not know that that was leaching into the northern well fields. Eau Claire has tons of well fields, they'll never run out of water, they were able to shut those wells off, PFAS problem's gone. Wausau, horrible PFAS problem. So 2 years ago, I'd tell you, it was always a municipal problem. Guys, it's more of a rural problem now. Down on Highway 37, big alerts for PFAS. What they found out was that, anybody from Buffalo County? Okay, I don't know if anybody knows Mondovi, not a lot of industry, okay? But somewhere in Mondovi, some factory, which is, the dog food factory is the only one that I know of, but has been putting PFAS into the ground, or into their wastewater, unbeknownst to them. When and where and how, don't know. But farmers were buying that waste and spreading it on the field. And now there's PFAS up and down Highway 37. Kind of starting, I had a map of the circle, but kind of by Langdell Road down past Anthony Acres down there. So we got some PFAS systems down there. PFAS is a forever chemical. It's in us. It does not go anywhere. It stays in us. Now, they don't know what it's doing to us because they don't know how long it's been inside us. And so, And no one's testing for it right now, guys, unless it's a municipality, because it's a $400 to $600 test.
I saw a documentary about PFAS where they were checking people's blood, and they had to go back to pre-World War II to find a blood sample that did not have any PFAS. And it's in everything from beef cattle to chicken to vegetables to water.
It's like strontium. You never had strontium. It's one of the few man-made elements out there. In 1939, or excuse me, in 1944, when they did their first nuclear bomb test, we got strontium in the soil, and it's everywhere. It's in us. It's everywhere. But yeah, it's we just don't know a lot about it. So they're throwing up a lot of red flags and everything. There's just been an outbreak 2 houses east of Fall Creek, out on Lincoln Avenue. So I don't know what to tell you about it. I know the EPA is playing a few games out there that usually the EPA always takes the Water Quality Association's word on everything because we do water. We've got the scientists, we've got the people. We were looking at 70 parts per trillion. Now, nitrates, who knows what the level of nitrate is in water you have to be beneath? 10 parts.
Per 10 parts per million.
Right. What is arsenic?
I believe that's 10 too, isn't
10
it? 10
parts
parts per trillion?
billion.
Billion.
PFAS is parts per trillion, so we're talking just normal measurement can't get down that far. So we were looking at 70 parts per trillion, and that was going to be the threshold. That's what all the equipment was being set for and certified for. In April 2024, the EPA came out and said 4 parts per trillion. Only one lab in the entire state of Wisconsin can test down that far. Wisconsin Lab of Hygiene down in Madison. It's the only lab. I think they might have testing equipment at Stevens Point now, which is an extension. Stevens Point's a great lab, but that's it. That's the list, and that's why the tests are $400 to $600. So we have highly specialized carbons to absorb that. And PFAS is a general term, okay? There's thousands of strains of PFAS out there. And you might notice if you watch late night TV, about every 2 years, there's a new non-stick pan in a different color.
Teflon.
It was the jolly green this, and then it was a red that, and it was a copper this, and it was a granite this, and a gray that, and a blue this. And what it is that when those scientists got wind of any kind of EPA stuff, well, we'll just change that helix like this. Now that's not regulated. So, who says scientists are for humanity? So anyway,
You know the difference between a million and a billion?
$1 million and $1 billion? Well,
If you went in seconds, 1,000,000 seconds is 12 days, 1,000,000,000 seconds is 31 years.
Yeah.
Holy shit.
Yeah.
So if you go to a trillion,
Trillion.
Yeah. So I mean, and I think the EPA came to this number because they want to start suing people. So 3M's gonna have some problems. But
DuPont also.
you do big time DuPont. But that's why we were just told, well, okay, now all the stuff that we were getting certified for 70 parts per trillion is non-certifiable. And actually, we went after them and said, you show me how to certify this. You can't send it to a lab, they can't even test down that far. And so, how do we even know we're getting it out of the water? Well, we don't want it in the water at all.
No.
I said, well,
How are you gonna
that's like saying we don't want any
oxygen in the air.
hydrogen in the water. You know, it's just like we don't want any oxygen in the water. It's like how do you pull something, you know? But anyway, that's where we're at. So if you do get questions about PFAS, we got special carbon filters that will absorb PFAS. It is pretty, not necessarily easy, but pretty good to get with a good specialized carbon, with a really tightly bound carbon to absorb that out of the water. Also a good reverse osmosis. Nice thing for reverse osmosis, which has been for nitrates forever, is that you are taking things out of the water you're not normally testing for. So there are ways, but like nitrates are not normally absorbed through the skin. You gotta be in the hundreds in order for nitrates to be absorbed through the skin. And the highest is at 2 houses down in Mondovi, once again Mondovi, that are right on a farm, and they're 42 parts per million.
Oh,
So,
man.
that's the highest I've ever seen. Before those 2 houses, 25 was the highest.
Holy shit.
So, and I just ran into my first 25 parts per billion of arsenic. Usually the arsenics have been between 10 parts per billion and 18 parts per billion. It hasn't been too high, but I finally ran into one that was pretty high. But arsenic, reverse osmosis, arsenics have gotta be in the hundreds parts per billion in order to be absorbed through the skin. So you don't have to necessarily worry about whole house this and whole house that, which we will sell you.
Have you done any whole house? Or
I have
how many
done
do you, a
two
year?
whole house reverse osmosis systems Gibson's has done in 25 years. And yeah, one of them actually got moved up to here, but the other had started out now too.
Took it out of the house.
Yep, and yeah, that was $22,000
Hmm.
because you have to create water.
Mhm.
You have to have a 300-gallon tank. Recirculation for sanitization and everything, and you have to replicate the water supply in the house, because that's what a reverse osmosis does, is it makes water. It takes this water and makes this water. And when you're doing it for a whole house, you better have a couple good square foot of basement that you're never gonna have again. Because you also need a repressurization pump, because you're not using your natural water pressure, either from the city or from your pressure tank. You have to have-
Regenerated.
So, I mean, it's pretty, the other way we get nitrates out of the water is through ionization, because nitrates are oppositely ionized as what calcium, lime, and iron is. So a water softener, and it's a misnomer, because it's not a water softener, it'll look just like a water softener, but it uses chlorides to pull the nitrates out of the water, but those are also expensive. They can be $6,000 versus, you know, 15, 16, 1900 for a reverse osmosis. A lot of VA loans, point of entry versus point of use, and that's one of the things that says POE or POU. POE is point of entry, treating the whole house. Point of use is point of use, where you're gonna use it, the kitchen. And VA loans sometimes want you to have point of entry, and that'll blow up a home sale in a big, big hurry. Big. Any questions on this?
Reverse osmosis?
Yeah.
Okay. Cause you can get them at Menards.
Yep, you got it.
If we tested, if somebody put one in themselves, what are the chances of it working?
Good.
They are good.
Good.
Okay.
The biggest thing about reverse osmosis is that make sure you're changing your filters. Make sure you're changing the membrane. The membrane is what does all the work. The membrane is what has holes large enough for only the water molecule to come through. And so the water goes through you have to have good water to make great water. Hardness and iron and everything look like beach balls to a reverse osmosis. It'll plug it solid. So you gotta usually have some pre-treatment to go with an RO. And the RO squeezes that water molecule through that membrane so that only H2O and low TDS water come out on the other end. So you can't have too bad of water for it to treat that, because it's treating basically total dissolved solids, things that normal filtration doesn't get out of the water. Most ROs are pretty good. The biggest thing is that quality, we can do a lot of things with ROs. I have a household RO that is taking care of a gas station with a bunch of pumps and everything. I can do a lot with it. You can't go to Johnny Menard and buy a $99 RO and do that. You can do a lot of stuff with our ROs because they're designed to fit a lot of different situations. The other thing is certification. Every one of us companies that do this have to pay millions in certifications to say that it does. The state of Wisconsin physically takes ours, does third-party certification. It takes a lot of time to do that. You go to Johnny Menard and you put in an RO, and you have birth problems, you have medical problems, and the doctor says, well, your nitrates are higher in your water. No, I got this to take the nitrates out. Oh, when ROs fail, they actually, like a sponge, put more nitrates into the water than what's actually going into it. It's called nitrate loading.
Well, if you put your own in, you don't change filters.
Exactly right. And so it's one of those things where, who do you sue? You gonna sue Johnny Menard and all his guys? They're gonna laugh at you and drain your lawyers, and then they're gonna go on to the manufacturer. The manufacturer will, you didn't sell it to me. When you deal with a health issue, you want service. You want somebody to say, hey, these filters were changed at this filter was changed this. And it also protects us that if you come after us, hey, we did X, Y, Z, you didn't let us into your house for 3 years. You can't help that. So, but that's the biggest thing, is there's a lot of crap out there, and I just wanted to get on filters quick. And when you're talking health, you want it to be healthy and someone to look at. These filters are exactly the same. At least they look the same.
So just general whole house filter.
Just
We
general.
see these Omni, we see these all the time.
You see these all over the place, guys.
Just a sediment.
You gotta read them. Okay? One's a 30 micron, one's a 5 micron. The lower the number, the more it traps. Also, the more it restricts the flow of the water. But you've gotta read them, because the filters are really designed for certain things in the water. I got guys that'll run right out and buy an $80 carbon filter. Oh God, it does really great, but I gotta change it every week, because it's a horrible filter. Carbon is an absorbent. It's designed to absorb things out of the water. But it does a real good job of filtering, because it's really tight. But your $12 5 micron string filter will do the exact same filtering as your carbon filter, but people get the carbon, it's expensive. These are simple. I like string filters because they're very readily available. Sometimes you might see blown mold, which are nylon. Those are okay. They're just more expensive. Paper filters are fine, and they're cheap, and that's why they're paper filters. But what happens with paper filters is sometimes you can get bucking. And what it is that accordion under high pressure, like if you turn on a tub, will buck a little bit, and that 5 micron filter might be a 90 micron filter, because but that's why they're $10. So.
Paper submerged in water doesn't last, that's weird.
Yeah, exactly. But just, when you see people that have filters trying to, well, we got iron. Okay, then why do we have stained toilets? It's not doing much for the iron.
I did a mobile home yesterday, after my modular home up in, mobile home up in Ladies yesterday. The plastic dishwasher, I've never seen anything so brown in my iron, right? And
Well, there's two basic kinds of iron, guys.
you'll want you guys to come up and try to make a laundry room to put a system in.
Right.
Right?
Well, modular homes can always be interesting when
Yep.
it comes to putting water conditioning.
Yep.
But
But that's iron, that's a ton of crap.
canister filters play a good part in water conditioning. Heavy iron you can see, you know it's in the water. We just filter it, we trap it. Sometimes you can get a good canister filter and trap out that iron. Clear water iron is the kind of iron where the dog dish is clean, the toilets are clean, the next day everything turns orange on. That's best taken out by some kind of oxidization filtering system or a water cell. I just wanted to touch on that. I know I've talked about iron several times here, so I'm not gonna go over that. I just wanted to show you how filters look exactly the same. And people just say, well, I got this, I just grab, because they look the same. You gotta read them. You've got to read them. They're designed. Now, if you got sand and sediment and clay and things in the water, a 50 micron filter might work fine. One of those little spin down Rusco filters, a little flushable, might be fine for sediment. A lot of people, I got an iron filter. It's a really sediment filter, but because they got iron, their sand is orange, so their sand filter gets orange, and they think they're trapping out iron, which they are. But yeah, canister filters. I just bought that along. I was looking at it today. I thought we were talking about that. You gotta know what you've got going on for the right kind of filter. Because if you have, let's say you got a lot of sediment, a lot of sand and everything in your water, you put this 5 micron filter in there, it's like changing diapers. Every weekend during halftime of the Packer game, you gotta go change this thing. Versus the 30 micron, you might get 6 months out of this for the same kind of water quality. And so you really gotta read your filters. Real common thing. Any questions about it?
The purple liquid iron stuff. Explain that. Do we see that once in a while? it's hard to explain that to someone.
What Pete's talking about, sometimes you go to a house that's got a water conditioner and they got this purple stuff kind of sitting there, and what that is it's called a potassium iron filter. They were awesome. They don't work so good anymore because EPA and OSHA, anyway. There used to be this material called green sand. It was from the ocean floor. It was some of the best filtering material on the face of the earth, and that's why they don't let us use it anymore. What happens is it sucked in this potassium permanganate, this purple granulated slurpy stuff, and it put an oxidative charge on that potassium. And so it could take both irons out of the water, clear water iron and heavy iron. And the green sand really neutralized a lot of that odor also. It neutralized a lot of iron bacteria. And so they were great. It was super systems, one of the best iron filters out there. Problem is, about 2008, they outlawed green sand. And in the age of cell phones and everything, the green sand plus, which is the replacement, just doesn't have that oxidative charge. And people don't open their houses anymore, and potassium is getting harder and harder to find. So getting into the houses, like most people can go get their own salt. They don't have to have me come and deliver their salt. Salt's everywhere. Okay. The potassium is a little more, you gotta know where to find it at the store, and you gotta know how much to put in there. And so getting into the houses to get the potassium product just got to be more bothersome and more bothersome. But we have got a lot of them in our rental fleets for our summer hookups, because they're great at cabins. We put 2 bottles of potassium in there, you won't touch it for the 6 months it's out there for the whole summer.
They're still there.
They're still there. And these
You don't
units
put
are
any new ones
25,
in.
30 years old.
So you're not putting any new ones
Nope,
in?
we just put new pistons in them so they don't leak. And these, they're just some of the best systems out there. But it will freak you out when they fail because you get purple water. Not gonna harm you. But yeah, you will get purple water.
rain.
Really, really, oh my God, my kids just drank a bunch of that. It's fine, they'll just glow in the dark for a little while. So. But yeah, that's what Pete's talking about, some iron fills. Sometimes they got a little black canister on the side and it's all goopy and icky in there. And it's the potassium permanganate. Yeah.
I thought you still sold it.
We don't sell them anymore. We don't even have them on the list, but we've got a lot of them out there because they are a great unit for cabin. You don't have to worry about hard water. You're just removing the iron up there. You throw a couple bottles in there, you're good for 6 months. When you come back in the fall, it's empty, it's perfect, it's good. So. Any questions, guys? Any other water-related things that you might have a question about that I didn't cover?
On your RO, your membrane, you ever dealt with that with sap and seen how that pulls the water out of sap?
Yeah. We got guys that use the wastewater in the maple syrup.
It's clean,
yeah.
it's good water.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
I mean, I put ours in a clear toast. And
Yeah.
It's amazing how much water you get out of there.
Yeah.
And if you
Well-
start watching them, they'll start flipping and then the sap will get a little yellower and yellower.
Well, that's the thing, it takes your standard RO, a good RO, now there's a lot of tankless ROs and things that are even so much more efficient, but the reason they like using that in that situation is that it takes 3 gallons of wastewater to create 1 gallon of product water. So for the maple syrup industry, you're actually pumping out twice as much water than that unit needs to consume itself. So it's really neat, because what happens is it's pushing that water through there and it's rinsing that membrane, and that water goes down to waste. And it's perfectly good water, depending on what you got in it. When you're taking out arsenic, I wouldn't be using the wastewater. But no, you are absolutely correct on that. Any other questions? Well, I really appreciate it, guys. It's always fun. I love coming here. You guys always treat me well. And if you have any questions, I'll leave some business cards here.
Yep. Always do.
Maybe at
After
home.
every week.
I might not have them. I had to leave the house all of a sudden.
Some idiot calls you. Get your ass over here.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Jason.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
I was gonna say
sit down and close my eyes for a minute or something.
Gee, where are you? Anybody want a pen at all? Sure.
Take another one of those spatulas.
Thank you.
Yeah, I am out, I went in the back to go look at
Two of those.
We still
And
got
a
one.
pizza cutting.
Yeah,
Yeah,
those things are great for getting inside a peanut butter jar.